Carol Lawrence, the original Maria in West Side Story, currently playing the West Side Theater in a beautiful new play called Handled with Care. It's a warm, wonderful Christmas Jewish kind of romantic comedy, and we would love to invite you. But right now, I'm chatting with the spectacular Rabbi Sol Solomon on Dave's Gone By, and it's on UNC Radio. So, let's begin.
Oh, good morning, everyone. Welcome and shalom. This is Rabbi Sol Solomon, the founder and spiritual leader of Temple Sons of Bitches in Great Neck, New York. And I am so excited and thrilled to be talking to a legend of the American musical theater. She was one of the new faces of 1952. And when you want to hear some of those other faces, those included Alice Ghostly and Pauline and Eartha Kitt. This woman, Carol Lawrence, was one of them. She was also in the original South Pacific for a while. And then in 1957, miracles happened. West Side Story opened with this lady as the original Maria. She was nominated for a feature actress Tony for that show, went on to do tons of television and other Broadway shows. She was on General Hospital. She has a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame for live theater, and she is still, all these years later, acting and performing. She's in an off-Broadway show she's going to tell us about. She is indefatigable. She is wonderful. She is with us. She is Carol Lawrence. Shalom, Carol.
Hello, Rabbi. You have me so excited I can barely speak.
Oh,
God bless you. I love your enthusiasm.
That's why I carry a defibrillator everywhere I go, just in case that happens.
Perfect. How are you, Rabbi?
Oh, good. I'm covered with snow. I've been shoveling for the past 2 hours. What a day. And my back and my prostate, you don't want to know from it. But
well, I love Colorado. I've worked in Colorado Springs with the Air Force Academy. I did a couple of television shows from there. So I love that whole beautiful mountainous area. And Denver, of course. So
I traded in a second.
You're blessed to be living there.
Well, I traded in a second for Florida. As where my people are and belong. So great to be talking to you. So excited. Let's get to the easy thing first. Tell us about your new play. Well, you didn't write it. You're in it. This play that you're in at the West Side Theater.
It's wonderful. It's a lovely, warm, romantic comedy. It mixes all kinds of emotions, familial relationships, and star-crossed lovers, and a little bit of tragedy. You laugh a lot, you cry just a little bit, and at the end of it you feel tremendously nurtured in a holiday festive manner. It takes place on Christmas Eve.
Wait, Christmas? I hope there's some Jewishness in there, too.
It is full of wonderful Jewish tradition,
Okay.
And we have a Shabbat dinner in it, and all kinds of wonderful references to the fantastic heritage that is Hebrew. So,
yes.
I'm in the best. You know, my very first Broadway show was called Borscht Capades, and it was...
That's Mickey Katz, wasn't it?
It was, pardon?
Wasn't that Mickey Katz?
Mickey Katz, you remember?
Of course I remember. Oh, my God, what was Mickey Katz like?
He was adorable. He was a little nebbish thing.
So am I, actually.
And his son, Joel Grey, was also in it, and Phil Foster, Dave Barry, the Barry sisters. Every Borscht comic in the world was in it, and I got to do the curtain speech. I was probably the only shiksa in the show, but I got a lot of solos because I had long black hair, and I was having a wonderful time. Would you like to hear the curtain speech?
Oh, my gosh, yes.
Okay, it goes like this. Shalom from California, land of palms and dates, home of the Mishigoyim, you'll see in Borscht Capades. The borscht is bubbling over. Hold on to your hats. Here comes that little mazik presenting Mickey Katz. Mickey would come out with his clarinet. It was wonderful.
Oh, my...
That's delicious. So I learned a lot of respect for all of my Jewish friends. Most of my friends in the business are Jewish. You know that.
Most of anybody in the business is
the most spontaneous, the most delicious people in the world.
Oh, well, yes, of course.
I'm basically Italian. My heritage is basically, but it's all the same. An Italian mama and a Jewish mama, they all quell, and they cook, and they spoil, and they fetch, and they do all those good things. So I feel right at home, and that's what I do in the play. I am an Israeli grandmother, and I meddle a little bit in my granddaughter's love life and bring her to America to cheer her up because her boyfriend left her in Israel and sent her into a deep depression. So I bring her to America to cheer her up, to build her up, to take her out of her doldrums. And I managed to do that by the end of the play.
And then I imagine she finds a nice goyish boy and there's some romance. Is that
So
sort
I
of the...
can't give it all away.
Right.
You have to buy a ticket and come. It's called Handle with Care, and we're at, prophetically, the West Side Theater. I was in West Side Story, of course, at the Winter Garden, and now I'm in the West Side Theater on 43rd Street. So we do 8 shows a week. So please come. Oh, you'll have to take a plane to come in, Rabbi.
It'll be worth it to see you back on stage, to see some Jewish people, a couple of Christian people, but mainly it'd be so incredibly worth it.
Exactly. We had a wonderful group of people from to kind of a benefit last night, and they loved the play. They stood up and cheered at the end and said I was more Jewish than anybody they'd ever met. So I think we're doing something right up there on the stage.
I'll bet. Now, you are probably not more Jewish than anyone I've ever met, but then again,
probably not.
I hang with rabbis.
I wouldn't presume that, but kind of close.
We are talking with the delightful and exciting Carol Maria Laraya, born in Melrose.
My goodness, and you said it right. You are good.
Well, yeah, I'm reading it in Hebrew from left to right. Or something.
It's never been done like that before, but that sounded perfect.
Well, thank you. So what brought you from Illinois to New York to be an actress?
Oh, wow. From the time I could walk, Rabbi, I danced. I don't know why. There's no real theatrical history in my family. Excuse me.
Of course.
But if there was music playing, I was dancing, and so everybody around said, "Why don't you?" She doesn't stop dancing. Why don't you send her to a dance school and let her learn how to do it properly? So my mother bought me tap shoes and brought me to the local dance studio, like everybody else in the neighborhood. Once she put those tap shoes on, Rabbi, I did not take them off. I clacked my way all the way across the kitchen floor and began practicing. My mother said, wait a minute, you're making terrible black marks on my floor. You can't do that. I'll pull the stove away from the wall a little. You can dance behind the stove to your heart's content. So I did. You'd hear this all day, behind the stove, and I wore the linoleum pattern through to the asbestos black, and I wore my taps down till they just whisper, Max taps. That's how I began, and it just took over my life. I studied more. I went in for scholarships. I had my own nightclub act at 13 in the summertime. So it was a passion of mine, and thank the Lord, I got to Broadway and did a lot of shows and have been dancing ever since.
Well, and
dancing and acting.
We moved rather quickly still from when you were 7 and tapping in the kitchen to taking some lessons. How long did you stay in Illinois? Where did you go for? Did you go for college?
I was 16 when I left. My father did not want me to be in the business. He wanted me to be a lawyer. Right. And I said, Dad, you know how I never took those tap shoes off once they put them on my feet? Aren't they going to look dumb in a courtroom? And he said, that's not funny.
Oh.
And so I asked him if we could just go to New York and see what auditions were like. And the first audition that I went to, I made, and it was Borscht Capades.
Oh my God, Borscht Capades on Broadway. And that would have been 1950-ish, because I have you here as, or the Internet Broadway Database, which is the thing that you look at for these things, does not even list the Mickey Katz Borscht Capades, but mentions...
No, they don't, because it only lasted for about 7 months, so it doesn't have a long listing record, but that was how I got my first audition. It was the first day I was in New York City.
Oh.
So
wait, can I ask what you auditioned with for that show?
It was a dance audition, so you do kicks, you do turns, you do leaps, you do combinations, and by the end of the day, I was in a Broadway show. And my father said, no, you don't get to stay. You have to come home. Now you see how easy it is to get on Broadway. And there was nothing easy about it. It was a hard audition. But I finally convinced him, and he was not happy as he went back to Chicago with my mom, who cried all the way back. But they knew that I was doing what I really loved doing, and that's how I began.
So now you're finishing Borshcapades. As you say, it was a relatively short run. Did you go right into another show? Did you have a period of uncertainty?
Well, at that time there were so many things. There were industrial shows, there were commercials, there were television shows. So you just kept auditioning and studying and working, and somehow you survived. And I had my savings from my nightclub act that I had done for 3 years at home in Chicago. So I was fine. I was really, went from one show to another. I did Plain and Fancy and Shangri-La, Ziegfeld Follies, all kinds of Broadway shows before I actually got into West Side Story, which was my first starring role.
Of course. But let me also, I guess this is sort of an in-between thing, but the Internet movie database list did you do live television dramas too? Were they live, some of them?
Oh, yes, of course. U.S. Steel, Hallmark Playhouse, all of those. Everything was live. There was no tape at that time. The Sullivan shows were all live. If you fell down on a Sullivan show, you picked yourself up and started all over again.
Did you ever have a boo-boo moment in one of these live programs?
There was one where, who was it? Jimmy McHugh went up on his lines, and he was kind of cross-eyed. And he looked at me with these eyes that I almost broke up. And it's live. You're not supposed to. And another time, I was doing a wedding ceremony with Roddy McDowell, and Sir Cedric Hardwick was a bit of a drinker, and he was supposed to say, do you take this woman to be your lawful wedded? And he just went up and he said, and when you take this, and you will ever, forever and ever, but you will not, and we were supposed to be kissing, and the two of us were laughing. We were broken up. Thank God we were kissing, so the audience, the camera couldn't see it. But that sort of thing happened all the time. But you have to just keep on going. It's like Broadway. It's the greatest place to learn how to get out of an impossible situation. You have to improvise your way back to the script.
This is true.
That's what we do.
And we're improvising and having a joyful time with Carol Lawrence. Before we get to the big show, you know the show, West Side Story, let's talk about a couple of the other shows that you were also in, such as Shangri-La, which you kind of mentioned in passing there. Yes. Jack Cassidy was in that. Alice Ghostley was in that. There was a musical they tried to make based on Lost Horizon.
Exactly right. And they just tried to hamper and update the book, the script. And it was a classic. It was set in the 30s, and it had such a wonderful charm, a fantasy about it. And they brought in the Chinese communists, and they brought in political aspects. They destroyed the beauty and the fragility of the piece, and it lasted 6 days.
Oy.
But we also, the scenic, there were a million problems. Broadway shows are the hardest, most complex vehicles to mount. And if you have just one element of the chain, the score, the book, the scenes, the costumes, the lighting, if any of those go awry, it knocks the whole ship off the horizon.
I know, but having been married for many, many years, I have to say that Jewish women are among the most complex things to mount. But
I guess so. I've never been married to one, so I don't know, but I'll take your word for it.
We're talking with Carol Lawrence, the delightful Carol. Now, let's talk also, let's get to it. Let's do West Side Story.
Yes.
Let's even take it from the audition. I assume you had to audition for...
I auditioned 13 times for the show. I did 2 other shows in the interim because Jerry Robbins just couldn't make up his mind. And so in that 2.5-year period that I auditioned, I did Shangri-La and the Ziegfeld Follies. So it was a very arduous time. But But to work with geniuses like Leonard Bernstein, Jerome Robbins, Arthur Lawrence, Stephen Sondheim, Hal Prince, I mean, we had the cream of the crop. And we also knew that we had an entity that was going to be a fantastic hit or an abysmal flop, because we were not glorifying, but dramatizing juvenile delinquency and the bigotry and the hatred of the gang wars. So the people said, "Oh, you're killing three of your major characters. What is this called, a musical comedy? It's not a musical comedy. You're going to die." And the audience in America took it to their hearts,
yes,
and loved it and saw it for the enormous tradition that it was bringing to the theater, and the importance of the message that intolerance is not to be tolerated. So that's why we...
I'm just surprised that you were still so worried about the thematic elements of West Side Story, since Rodgers and Hammerstein were killing off major characters in almost every show they did at that point.
Well, Carousel, yes, but not very many others, and not three, and not so violently. We really had a terrible rumble, and it put a lot of... Cheryl Crawford was our first producer, and she threw up her hands in the middle of pre-production, said, "I just don't believe in it. I can't imagine that you're going to be successful. You'll be an artistic flop, and I don't want to be a part of it."
Well, was it, I have to say, in all the rehearsal periods, kind of an unpleasant experience in the sense that Robbins was pitting the Jets and the Sharks literally against each other and making sure the actors all hated each other?
Well, yes, he insisted upon Stanislavski methods, and that you had to really live the part. I mean, people were going... But we were challenged to a rumble by real juvenile delinquents once we opened. There was a gritty reality in the show, and Jerry had never directed anything, so the only way he knew to get truth out of actors was to make them literally hateful monsters. And they were. They did beat each other up on the stage. We always had a doctor in attendance out of town. And we did have breaks on the stage, broken bones, compound fractures, split heads, stitches, constantly. It was...
You were the Spider-Man of 1957, for goodness sakes. It's amazing.
Yes,
wow.
It was.
But you, at least, you and I guess Larry Kurt weren't... you were on different sides, but at least you were straddling both sides. So I imagine you both didn't get the worst of all of that.
Well, we were attacked. He spared nobody, but you grew used to it. One night he gave me 65 notes. I don't know how anybody could do 65 things that badly in one show, but he zeroed in on me, and I had 65 corrections that night, and he always gave them in the entire company's presence. You were never allowed to hear the bad stuff in your dressing room privately.
Oh, yeah.
But that's how he was. And he was a genius. You loved him and you hated him, but you had to love him more and admire him for what he was creating on that stage. It was brilliant.
But was he ever needlessly cruel, or was he just simply direct?
He was absolutely direct. There was always a reason. He was not mean to be mean. He just could do it better than anybody because he was so articulate and so sarcastic. His sense of humor was phenomenal.
Oh. So, and let me ask, since it took a 2.5-year period during which you were rehearsing, auditioning for Jerry, when you first started rehearsing, was it still East Side Story about Jews, or was it already West Side by then?
No, it was already the West Side Story, but we were called Gangway until we went out of town. Gangway, like the gangs of the teenagers, Jets and Sharks were the gangs, and then they decided to call it West Side Story. It was going to be East Side Story originally. Jerry took 10 years from concept to opening. So he began it on the east side of New York at Passover with a Catholic girl and a Jewish boy.
And then they realized there really won't be much fighting, just a lot of arguing.
Well, Arthur Lawrence said, do we really want to do ABC Jerry's Irish Rose again. And they said, well, I don't know. And it went on and went on. And then Arthur Lawrence and Lenny Bernstein were in Los Angeles, and they were at the poolside, and they were reading the paper, and it said, gangs kill 5 in a rumble. And they said, oh, my goodness, that's our story. That's our story. And so they called Jerry in New York City, and they said we should set it in New York City. They wanted to do it in Los Angeles, and Jerry said, no, New York City, West Side, the Puerto Ricans against everybody else.
Now, do you have any recollections, since obviously Jerry Robbins is so vivid and memorable because he was the director and the guy you auditioned for, but any memories of Stephen Sondheim working or changing things in this period?
Steve was the baby in the group. You know, he was only 26. And he came in at the very last minute. Lenny had already done many of the lyrics.
Oh.
And it was just getting to be such a load. But Jerry almost wanted it cinematically underscored. And he said, I can't do everything. So they brought Steve in at the last minute. And he did basically Something's Coming and Krupke. But the rest of it was pretty much Lenny's. And Leonard Bernstein was as wonderfully kind and nurturing and helpful and inspiring as Jerry was, you know, caustic and sarcastic. And so much of our safety net was provided by Leonard Bernstein, who was the dream angel of all to work with. I adored him.
So once the show opened and you got amazing reviews and people loved the show and it became a thing, is that when everyone realized it was not just a good show but somehow incredibly special forever?
We always, as a cast, knew that we had something very, very important in our hands, and it was to be handled with care, like my show at the West Side Theater. But we never doubted it for a second. It was just a matter of whether the critics were going to get on board, because our first show in Washington, D.C., the audience just loved it. They stood up and screamed and yelled and stomped their feet. I've never heard such a response from an audience. So we knew that the audience got it. We just didn't know whether the 7 critics of New York City were going to be able to accept it.
And for the most part, they did. I don't remember. There were probably 1 or 2 naysayers, I'm sure.
Walter Kerr was the only one who said that he loved everything about it, technically, and how it was produced and portrayed and acted, but he didn't feel that the subject matter was right for Broadway musicals. And, I guess he was proven wrong. I think he was.
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
When the movie came about, were you ever up for the role of Maria, or did they have Natalie Wood in mind from the beginning?
Well, Robert Weiss really wanted her very badly. They had worked together before, and she had an international name. And I did a screen test, but I really was misdirected, and I wasn't bright enough or experienced enough to say, I can't play this. Jerry wanted me to do the scene like a tigress, and Robert Weiss wanted me to do it like a butterfly with gossamer wings. And instead of saying, wait a minute, I'll do the scene twice, but I can't do it that diabolically opposed. So I tried it. If you don't make the negro, I look like a schizophrenic. So I would not have given me the part either. So that was a shame. It was a sad event.
But it happens to so many Broadway actors who...
Yeah, I don't think it would have made any difference. I think that they wanted the marquee value of a Natalie Wood, who'd been in the business from the time she was 5 or 6.
True.
And internationally known.
Well, you became certainly known almost as much as she did from doing West Side Story on Broadway, and then you moved on to do more TV, more shows. You were in a production called Saratoga,
right?
That we wanted to talk about a little bit. This was, I'm sure, the idea of the producers and the creators of Saratoga was to do Showboat 2. It was Edna Ferber again. It was a sprawling thing. But what happened with that show?
I think the production just got out of hand. It was too complex. Morton DaCosta decided that he wanted to write the script. He wanted to produce the play. He wanted to direct it it, and he wanted to do the publicity. He said, I've never gotten the credit that I have in all the other shows that I've done all these other things. So this, I'm producing it, I'm going to get the credit. And he just worked himself to a frazzle. He ended up in the hospital. Oh. And so we were director-less by the time we came into town. And a show of that proportion cannot survive, cannot. We had 3 treadmills, a turntable, Cecil Beaton sets were absolutely phenomenal. The gasps from the audience when they saw the costumes and sets. But it was more than the audience could grasp. He left every nuance, detailed script value in it, and you can't. You got to sing it. You got to portray it, a musical, more simply than we had a chance to do.
And speaking of another, we're talking with Carol Lawrence, and talking of another show that did not quite do so well, but almost did. It ran for a while, thanks to the machinations of its producer in a lot of ways, David Merrick, and the show being Subways for Sleeping. Do you have memories of that show?
Yes, it was, I think ahead of its time. We were dealing with the homeless before anybody in America really knew what that was about. And because the show was so fragmented, it was too many episodes trying to be told at the same time. And the audience couldn't keep track of it all. So and David was the masterful. He put a full-page ad in the Times that he couldn't wait to put up, identifying Walter Kerr, all of the. Brooks Atkinson had just died, and so he had somebody for everybody who were critics. Somebody in New Jersey who said, Walter Kerr didn't say it, who's in New Jersey, this is the greatest show since sliced bread. You must come and see it, blah, 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 blah. And it was a full page, the back page of the Times. And they took him to court, and we got more free publicity.
Of course.
Then he was brilliant. I love David Merrick.
Oh, my God. You are one of the few people who have ever said those words.
He was a brilliant, masterful businessman and a producer, and fair. He never fired you without telling you straight on, face to face. He didn't do it behind your back. So I loved him for that. He was, I just loved him.
Oh my God. So it's kind of interesting and nice to hear, because we had a press agent on a few weeks ago,
yes,
who could barely even say what she really wanted to say about David Merrick for fear of getting sued.
That's funny. No, he was diabolical. He would do anything to sell a ticket. And he was barefaced about it. I love that.
So you like that full direct approach?
I love
Now, after Subways, there weren't that many other shows who went into Kiss of the Spider Woman, I think, at one point.
I played Cheetah, yes, Rivera. And it was wonderful. I love that show. Difficult. I mean, you never stop singing and dancing and climbing webs and running about. But it was. I enjoyed it tremendously. She coached me. She was wonderfully helpful.
Oh, was she really? In what ways?
Well, she would say, you're going to fall off that sky rope if you do it like that. Put your rear end forward. I mean, she was brutal but wonderful. I love Tia Rivera.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah, she just seems like the most terrific lady.
Yes, she is.
Has that been your most recent Broadway appearance?
I guess so, until now. And we're not very far from the Broadhurst. I played the Spider-Woman at the Broadhurst, and we're Handled with Care at the 43rd Street West Side Theater. So,
which is a lovely theater, by the way. It's a sweet little...
It's a delicious thing to play. Very warm. The people are right. Their knees touch the stage. The first row are practically on the stage with you.
By the way, we are talking with Carol Lawrence, and in between with all the Broadway stuff, you were also doing a lot of shows out in St. Louis at the Muni Theater. Were you living there for a particular reason, or just to be near the Muni?
It was just the wonderful circuit. I played so many summer stock from not South Pacific. I did Sweet Charity and No Nanette and The Sound of Music, Funny Girl, all the big gut busters, and that was part of the St. Louis and the Kansas City and the Indianapolis, the Dallas, all of those were part of the circuit. So you played them every summer.
Did you love doing that?
Yes, I really did. You know, the St. Louis is the largest outside theater in the world. So something like 9,000 people are screaming and yelling and applauding and standing. And, yeah, it's wonderful.
Well, what is it like? I mean, we think of a Broadway theater as maybe 1,200, 1,500 seats. How do you act for 9,000 people?
Yeah, that's what I thought when we were doing the first walkthrough on the stage in the morning of the theater, because we had closed the night before in Kansas City. And I thought, oh, Lord, by the time the words get, to the top of that hill, and then the laughter comes back, we're going to have to slow everything down, and it's a comedy. Excuse me. And as we began playing, the theater's been there from the turn of the century, from 1900, and the audiences are so well trained that they just snap at you. They respond so quickly and so brilliantly and so sophisticatedly that you don't have to change a thing. It's just like playing a wonderfully big house, and you don't do anything differently. You just play it, and they love it. It's one of my favorite theaters in the world.
Wow, the St. Louis Muni. That's
yes.
Amazing. Now, let me ask, you have, obviously, even just from talking to you on the phone, you've got a very theatrical way about you, a very strong, great diction, wonderful voice. Do you still take any acting, vocal, movement, coaching classes, anything, especially now that you have to do 8 shows a week?
Yes, I take singing lessons all the time, and I do a little bit of yoga, and I'll go in for a jazz class now and then. It's important to keep moving. It's important, people who become arthritic are arthritic because they lie on the sofa and nurse their pain. You have to walk through it. I don't mean that you have to go on trapezes or try to tightrope. You do safe things, and if you have to sit in a chair, you have to keep exercising. You have to keep the juices flowing and the muscles strong.
Very, very, very. Have you been, God willing, healthy?
Yes, I'm very healthy.
Knocking wood? Well, no, I'm Jewish. I shouldn't knock wood. I'm going to knock...
It's okay, you can.
Styrofoam or something. And let's see, other questions for the delightful Carol Lawrence. Now, if you look at the Internet Movie Database that I mentioned before, it seems that your last even TV or movie credit was a Sex and the City episode back in 2000.
Right.
Where have you been the last 10 years or so?
I've been in Los Angeles. My sons live in Los Angeles. And in Los Angeles, if you're more than 23, an agency will not touch you. You're just too old. And so rather than go pounding the pavement and trying to do all that, I just kind of took it easy. My son just gave birth to, he didn't, his wife gave birth to a little girl named Kaylin, who is 4, and I have been just quelling. I'm working on a television show called The Naughty Nana that I'm hoping to write and produce.
Oh.
And she's, it's me, of course.
Of course.
I take children into my gazebo and begin to tell them a story, and she's partly a wonderful fairy who becomes naughty now and then because she's just a little mischievous, but she'll take them on these adventures and teach them lessons, life lessons and life principles, and it'll be part animated and part live, and that's what I'm working on now.
Interesting. Now, you're writing the script. Where are you going to shop? How are you going to go about shopping this around?
Well, you prepare a wonderful DVD, you do a presentation, and then they test it and they stream it, and everything is electronic today,
Sure.
Rabbi. It isn't like it used to be that you'd have to enlist RKO to do a movie of it. It's much quicker, and you get a reading fast. Everybody's producing everything that they have always dreamed of, but they do it now electronically.
Makes sense.
Yes.
I'm waiting for them to put out an electronic Torah. If only.
Yes,
it's so
that would
easy
be
to
wonderful.
carry.
That would be wonderful.
You take the little flash drive out of the ark, and you hold it to people, and they kiss it, and you dance around with it. It's so simple.
That's it. Perfect.
There you go.
Brilliant. You're brilliant.
Hey, have you ever done Fiddler on the Roof? At Muni or anywhere?
I haven't. No, that would be a wonderful.
Oh, not even the Rothschilds? Anything? Any one of those? No?
No, I haven't. Oyster Capades. No, this is my Jewish play. This is my Hebrew tribute to family and to love and to tradition and to love winning out. This is a story of love postponed and revisited and regenerated and revived.
It's called Handle with Care. It's over at the West Side Theater, opening in a couple of days with the delightful, the adorable Carol Lawrence, who, by the way, are you still a bit of a cook?
I am. I have a wonderful cookbook called I Remember Pasta. It's a tribute to my mother and all of her recipes that she gave to nobody complete except moi-même, myself, because I was her only daughter.
Oh, my, and you won, like, awards. You were even at a Food Network show for...
Yes. I had a show. Well, actually, it was on the Trinity Broadcasting Network, and it was an interview. It was an hour show, and we cooked. And the cooking segments were always the most popular because they were mostly my mother's recipes. So people think it was a cook show, but it wasn't.
Well, give us a secret, a hint of what would make a better pasta. Because I throw noodles in hot water, I put a little ragu on it, and I'm done. What am I missing?
Oh, wow. Well, you first of all have to put a little oil in the water, a little salt, when you're cooking the pasta, and you have to make your lasagna with fresh mozzarella and a lot of different kinds of cheese, 3 different kinds of cheese, so you get a textured variance of the flavor instead of just one flat, cheesy taste.
Oh.
That's one little secret.
That's a very good secret. Did you make your own homemade tomato sauce?
Oh, my goodness, it takes 3 days, yes.
Oh, my God, I don't have 3 days.
But it's worth it. People will remember it forever.
Wow. As people remember West Side Story forever and some of the shows and the things that you have done, what are some memories that you will have forever of people that you have worked with over the years? I mean, even doing a 1 or 2 episode television thing with people like Red Skelton and Bob Hope.
Well, all of those, the bigger they were, the better equipped they were to nurture you. And I was very young when I came out of West Side Story. So Bing Crosby and Bob Hope, Red Skelton would, be generous in the sketches and give you more of. But perhaps Ricardo Montalban was the most gentle, wonderful. We did Rashomon together for Play of the Week, a 2-hour drama that was directed by Sidney Lumet. And Ricardo played the bandit, this barbaric man, and he was so gentle and kind to me always, and the easiest actor I've ever worked with, and perhaps one of the most giving, generous people I've ever known in my life. I loved
Ricardo Montalban. How nice. That's sweet. And I have to ask, how did you meet your second husband?
We met cast as husband and wife on a 2-hour special called The Enchanted Nutcracker. And it was a Christmas special for 2 hours that dealt with Tchaikovsky's music, and Carol Haney did the choreography, and it was a story of a husband and wife with a little girl that they couldn't be with because he was a movie star stuck in a blizzard in Denver. The plane couldn't get off, and I was the ballerina in New York City, and my understudy broke her leg, so I had to do all the nutcrackers. And so our little girl was in Chicago at her boarding school and all alone, and it was her fantasy dreams of bringing her parents to her.
And when you met on this particular set, sparks flew between you. I should mention that your second husband was Robert Goulet.
Right.
So, how do you remember him asking you out?
Oh my God, all the time, and I was not interested. He was a very precarious kind of womanizer at the time. He dated, he flirted with everybody in the world. I wasn't interested at all for the longest time. I think the reason he kept after me all the time. I was probably the first woman who ever said no.
Right, there you go. But eventually he wore you down at one point?
He wore me down, yeah. I finally found a little boy inside that was really very vulnerable and very, very wounded. And that's what I fell in love with.
Was it a difficult marriage, a great marriage? How was it?
It was very hard. Everybody said, don't marry, another singing, dancing, he didn't dance, but a performer, a musical comedy performer. It was very hard because we were away from each other so much, and I was always, at home taking care of the kids or bringing them on the road, and he got into all kinds of problems that I can't go into without getting very sad. So I will say that it was a difficult time, and we didn't survive. The marriage did not survive, and so it's been painful ever since.
Sure. Well, no. I mean, did you at least become friends when it was over? Were you able?
Sure, of course.
Oh, good. Oh, this is. And then you got married again briefly.
Right.
After that, and that didn't. Was that another actor or something completely?
No. It was a businessman, and I didn't know him long enough to really know him well enough to commit to that. And I committed because I wanted somebody to help me raise my sons, and it didn't work out.
It happens.
Yes,
so has there been romance in your life since then?
No, there hasn't. Are you questioning?
Well, let's see. I have a son-in-law. No, I'm kidding. No.
No, it's all right. I'm deeply involved with my family and my work, and it would be difficult right now for me to get romantically entangled. So I'm happy in my wonderful show, Handled with Care, and I just love everybody to pieces around me.
Can I ask you, Carol Lawrence, not counting West Side Story,
yes.
What is the favorite song that you have ever sung?
Oh, wow. It is in West Side Story, and, probably You Will Be, it isn't that one. You Will Be My Music is a wonderful, wonderful song. You will be my music. You will be my song. You will be my music to fill my life with joy my whole life long. That's my favorite song.
You fill our hearts with joy and song, Carol Lawrence. All I can say is it's been an absolute delight, a pleasure to have you in the neighborhood. We have to tell everybody, please go to the West Side Theater to see this lovely, romantic, sweet, comical show called Handle with Care, featuring Carol Lawrence. All you have to do is listen for the past 45 minutes to know why you need to see this woman on stage. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you, Rabbi. You're adorable.
Oh, thank you.